Off the Hook, airing on offthehooksports.com, your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. The Off the Hook podcast at offthehooksports.com or Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you go for your favorite podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Off the Hook with Dave Hooker starts now.
Welcome to the program. So that Amanda doesn't have to remind me, which it's a new duty for her. She's got a lot of duties, a lot of responsibilities, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Hit the likes, subscribe, and share button. We would greatly appreciate that. She is Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Caleb Calhoun will join us very shortly. But first, good morning, Amanda LaFratta. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am rocking it. Ready for the weekend. Excited about a big show in which we'll be visited by Jonathan Crompton, a former Vol. Also, we will be joined by Coach Lance for a little message board bingo. And Caleb Calhoun will join us as well. So as we always do, it is the down and dirty at 30. And I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and bring our good friend and OTH beat reporter Caleb Calhoun in on this because I want to get to some Tennessee things. And so we'll bring him in right now. Caleb Calhoun on the big screen. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing this morning?
I'm well. We're ready to get rolling on a Friday. And let me ask everybody real quick. How many Akron players can you name?
So,
well, Amanda too. I mean, it's just a woeful opponent, guys.
Yeah, they're actually. I've been saying all week Akron's the worst team Tennessee's going to face all year, and that includes UT Martin. Well, UT Martin did win their conference last year. They're actually They have a decent FCS program right now. I forget their head coach. He's been there for 16, 17 years now. But Akron has just been a complete disaster. They were 1-11 last year. They're undergoing a coaching change. I think they beat their first game. They beat St. Francis, which is a bad FCS program, and they needed overtime to win. So they're an awful, awful team.
Not good. All right. So, Amanda, our down and dirty at 30. The news of the day is brought to you by Honeybee Coffee. I can talk about the top 5% of the beans and all that good stuff, but at the end of the day, I sit down at Honeybee Coffee, and you can order all of their coffee online. And I'm not a coffee drinker, and I have 3 cups. You say it best. It just tastes fantastic.
It's just good coffee. I mean, when you take it with you on vacation, you got to say it's just good coffee. That's about it. Yep.
Yeah, Amanda is on vacation, so she is just pounding it out. I hope you hit the beach today. And so you actually took the Honeybee Coffee with you on vacation. That says a lot. It says a lot about Honeybee Coffee for sure. And all right, so let's get to it. The down and dirty at 30 last night. The Chargers lose 27-24 in what was a really close game that was determined by an interception return the other direction. And I'm watching that game last night, and I'm thinking to myself, there are guys that are ready to be head coaches, and there are guys that aren't. And I'm watching the game, and I see an injury. I see a guy who's pretty beat up, and that young man would be somebody we all know, and that's a quarterback for the Justin Herbert for the Chargers. And I'm watching him bounce around out there, and he looks fantastic, and he's one of my favorite players to watch. But ultimately, he gets knocked around and gets beat up, and they keep him in the game. And I understand that. I get it. You want to win the game. But he literally is hampered by his ability to throw. So you have the Chargers who have a first-time head coach, and I I thought they should have pulled him at that point. I tie this back to Tennessee, and congratulations to Joshua Palmer, former Ball, who caught a touchdown pass. You're so much better off hiring a coach with some head coaching experience, like Josh Heupel got at Central Florida. If not, I think there's a lot of mistakes that can be made, and I like keeping Justin Herbert out there was a mistake. I thought earlier this week that the Denver Broncos made a mistake in a long field goal. And Amanda, I think there's something to be said for having that head coaching notch on your resume. And Tennessee didn't do that with Jeremy Pruitt. We saw where it went. It's not a guarantee, but I would rather have a guy that's been in those situations that has to make those decisions rather than not.
I mean, we can say that, but then look at, Kirby Smart and what he's done at Georgia. So that's, there's good and bad to every head coaching situation. And mine, I mean, I don't think I'm wrong, but I don't think Kirby ever was a head coach before he got with Nick Saban.
No, he wasn't. I mean, no, like I said, there's no set rule whatsoever. But Caleb, I think having that on your resume is pretty important. Now, Kirby that is a great example of otherwise, but Kirby, I think we all knew was going to be a pretty solid head coach and waited his turn. He could have flamed out, but I didn't think that would happen. But I will say at the time, Caleb, that I thought that Kirby Smart at Georgia was an okay hire and that they could have done better. Obviously, I was wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you. I didn't see. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I did not see Kirby Smart doing what he was doing at Georgia, doing it so well. And I think Kirby Smart's success is what led to the hire of Jeremy Pruitt, because he was Alabama's next defensive coordinator. And I don't think there's a magic formula. I agree it helps, but I think a lot of things help when you're hiring a coach. So, having head coaching experience could help. But, if you're an SEC school hiring and coach with SEC ties, that might help. Things like that. I think we're a little bit prisoner of the moment because this week in the NFL, the last 2 games we've watched, we have seen mistakes by first-year head coaches. That Monday Night Football game, Nathaniel Hackett, that is some of the worst coaching I think I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. And so, anybody who watched the Manning cast, I think Shannon Sharp was on with Peyton Manning at the time, and I think they were both just losing their mind watching Nathaniel Hackett.
Peyton was calling timeouts, someone said 64 times. He was sitting there going timeout, timeout.
And the thing is, if you're not going to call timeout, I actually understand that, because you may not get the 4th down, so you want to have all 3 timeouts. But then you've got to have a quick 4th down play that you can run right then. And instead, literally the number one thing to not do is to run the clock down to 30 seconds and then call timeout. And that's what he did.
True. And And Peyton at one point was saying, get going, get going, get going, get moving. And Eli was saying it too towards the end of that game. And by the way, this is ironic here. Did anybody think that the streaming was a little different? I guess I flip around a lot. No flipping here, by the way, the Larry Sanders Show. But I just felt like when I'm watching that game that I wanted to flip around and it was streaming, so I couldn't. So is that part of the motive, maybe, to keep you locked in through commercials? If so, they need to sell a lot more commercial spots, because I saw a whole lot of self promos, which means they have inventory to get rid of. Something tells me they'll be just fine. So congratulations, as I mentioned, to Joshua Palmer, who had the touchdown. And this is super cool. Chris Lofton's number retired in a really neat ceremony that Rick Barnes shared the news about his retired number with the rest of the team. And guys, I just thought that was a really cool moment. Chris Lofton went through a lot. I don't know. Everybody knows about his cancer diagnosis and the fact that he was able to overcome that at this point, but nobody knew during the season, and because he didn't want it to go public. And everybody throughout that season, which was supposed to be his final year and great season and right off into the sunset, was like, why is he not as good as he was last year? And I remember being at that press conference, filling in for somebody who was on vacation. They just kind of threw together this press conference at whatever the big the triangular building is downtown. It used to be a Marriott. Amanda, I don't know what it is now. And they threw together a press conference for some reason there. I don't even know why. And that's when they announced it. It was like, whoa. Yeah. Just a great guy. I didn't cover him closely. I wasn't involved with basketball at that time, but I've never heard say anything negative about him. I'm not a big fan of retiring numbers in general, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was. I like that story. You always like that story. It kind of reminds me of the Chadwick Boseman, the guy that played Black Panther. He had.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he had cancer, and everyone was commenting on how thin he was and why he doesn't look good anymore, and like what is he doing, and somebody needs to feed him, all this stuff. And he never told anyone that he had cancer until it didn't come out until he passed away from cancer. And he was actually filming movies and everything else, just enduring it and not letting anybody know what he was battling. So it kind of reminds me of that situation. It was really heartbreaking. I cried for a long time on that. I don't know why, I just did.
Yeah, and I love Marvel movies. As far as a movie that is the best movie that Marvel's put out, just a movie standalone. I didn't know the backstory of Black Panther, which is super cool. Norm Macdonald actually did the same thing. He only told like a very, very small group of people, like a handful. So I hope none of us ever have to make that decision, obviously. So Chris Lofton's number is retired. Congratulations to him. A super cool ceremony. And then there is Tennessee football to talk about. Yes, they're playing Akron. And Jalen Wright with 2 fumbles in 2 games. And I wonder how long that leash is. Josh Heupel was asked about that on Thursday. You can read that story on offthehooksports.com. If you look at the stats, Wright is the better tailback. I'm not saying he is. I think Jabari Small is. But Wright's averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Jabari Small, 3.5 yards per carry. But, guys, the bottom line is, if you can't hold on to the football, you're not going to stay in the game. That has to get addressed like yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. And I know they're kind of they are giving him a break, saying they keep talking about how because he was hurt in fall camp, that kind of delayed his development and he's a little rusty. I think the Jabari Small averages are a little skewed because the Pittsburgh game, yes, he had 10 carries for 17 yards. 3 of those yards were 2 one-yard touchdown runs and then a 3rd and 1 conversion. And I think people forget this. Tennessee didn't convert those last year. The whole reason they lost the Music City Bowl to Purdue was because, yes, Jalen Wright probably got in where he had to fight for a little bit extra yards, but they had a lot of trouble in short yardage situations. And I think Jabari Small put on 15 pounds in the offseason, and then Lynette Whitehead goes down for the season at the start of fall camp. They don't really have a power back. He's really the only guy they can use in short yardage situations. And I agree. I think he's better than Jalen Wright. I don't know why they use Wright more. I made a prediction I'm going to expose myself here. It flamed out.
Please don't expose yourself. Amanda's watching.
No, I meant I'm going to expose. Wow.
You could do that in radio. Howard Stern did a whole show.
That's not what I meant.
The entire staff was nude, but we got video here. Amanda, cover your eyes.
That would not work out well in today's day and age. Howard Stern, entire nude video or whatever.
Oh my gosh, Dave.
Good morning, everyone. It's Friday.
Happy Friday.
All right. How did you most recently expose yourself, Caleb?
What I'm going to expose a really bad prediction I made where I said, gosh, I'm the youngest one here. I should have the dirtiest mind, but I made a prediction at the beginning of the year that because of the injuries at running back, because Jalen Wright was held out of fall camp, and because of how Heupel uses his system, I thought Jabari Small was actually going to challenge Travis Stevens for the single-season rushing record. Boy, that prediction is dead wrong through 2 games. But I'm still a believer in Jabari Small. I just don't think they're using him enough, and I don't know why.
That's fair. It's really kind of the mindset of all coaches that you split up carries, Amanda.
Mhm.
And I get that, but to me, there looks like there's a discernible talent difference. Again, I go eye test, which gets me in trouble. I think there's a discernible difference between Wright and Small. So
There must be something Wright's doing that they are impressed with. I'm not sure. I know the numbers, as Caleb pointed out, are skewed, and I guess Wright has like 6.5 yards per carry versus Small's 3.5, I believe.
Mhm.
I just don't. I don't know why they're using Wright as much as they are. And I know they're going to split carries, but I think the use of Wright was a big surprise to everyone before the season even started because no one expected that. At least I expected Sampson to be out there, not Wright, but that was just me.
yeah, I want to see more out of Dylan Sampson. I want to see that guy, and maybe it's Squirrel White. I don't know exactly who it is, but maybe it's Dylan Sampson that has some shiftiness and does some things in the passing game, jet sweeps, that sort of thing. I don't even know if that's a part of Josh Heupel's offense, but that is something I would like to see, and I think would benefit the Vols. A couple more things. The down and dirty at 30. Tamarian Parker on offthehooksports.com. You can check that out. Had some strong words to describe his recent unofficial visit to Clemson. It looks like that's going to be the leader. 4-star class of 2023 defensive lineman. He was committed to Penn State, so he can be a little flippant. So I wouldn't give up if I'm Tennessee at all. But man, he really seems to like Clemson, according to a story on 3. Our Caleb Giroux wrote about that, and he said, quote, "Ever since I stepped on campus for the very first time, I loved it. I loved the people there. I love the stadium." So we'll see. Clemson, Florida, Tennessee, looks like it's pretty much down to that. So your thoughts on Tennessee recruiting right now, Caleb? I know you covered that and where they are. I know they'd like to pick up another wide receiver, but the 2023 class has a few more months to take shape. Any potential targets out there or needs to fill that you see?
They actually have been addressing a lot of their needs in this class. I mean, they're loaded at defensive back. If I were to sit there and say there's an area they need to focus on, it's defensive tackle. They are relatively deep at defensive tackle, but I don't think they're that deep. And I think similar to offensive line, that's just a position where you should always reload your talent on the interior. And so they don't have anybody committed in the middle for this year. And this year, there's Amari Thomas, but I think Karak Garland is going to be gone after this year, or maybe he has another year left. I'm not entirely sure. I've gotten so confused with the COVID 2020 rulings.
I have too. I mean, I was thinking to myself, we work with Cooper Mays. I was trying to think to myself, planning not just for next month, but next year and the year after that. How long do we have Coop? Because I love him on. I love having him on. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know how much time he's got left because of the COVID year. I know that Jacob Warren is a senior that has another year left, but his intentions, which he told us at offthehooksports.com, is to go ahead and go to the NFL, and I don't blame him. So it gets a little bit confusing. A couple of other recruiting tidbits. The VolQuest. It's not going to be a big visit weekend. It's Akron. It is what it is. Florida's next week, so you want to bone up for that, have as many people in as you can. You want the big time guys to see that type of atmosphere. But it looks like New Jersey offensive lineman Cole Skinner will be in town, and 2024 offensive tackle Ransom McDermott will be in town as well. That according to VolQuest. And then I want to get to a story that Caleb wrote yesterday on offthehooksports.com. That's the Down and Dirty at 30, and it's brought to you today by Honeybee Coffee. So we get to Caleb's thoughts, and brought to you by the Mattress Place. 22 years on Chapman Highway. They are A-plus accredited, member of the Better Business Bureau. And folks, I'm just going to tell you, if you need a mattress, it's the only place to go, because they're 30 to 70% off each and every day. Marine veteran owned. The reviews are through the roof, like over 220 5-star reviews on Google, and just check them out. Trust me, don't make a decision with one of those massive big stores. Just go to the Mattress Place. Caleb, Josh Heupel not writing off players who didn't see the field at Pitt. That means, in my mind, you better do it against Akron if you want to be a factor against Florida. Who are some of those players that need to have a big game against Akron, have a sound game against Akron, and fundamentally, in order to be a factor against Florida and in order to be a factor in the rotation? Because that rotation has already started to shrink at wide receiver, I believe, and I think it's going to continue to shrink at other positions.
Yeah, so I agree. And I think these are about, not only do these players need to have a factor, Tennessee needs these players to have an impact and be a factor, because there's some issues with the Vols that we know about. So we start with linebacker. He did hint that Juwan Mitchell could get on the field Saturday, and despite all the touting that's been done of Aaron Beasley, and I'm not here to dismiss it, I'm not here to knock it, that doesn't change the fact that Tennessee has issues in coverage at linebacker, and I'm going to harp on that forever until I see a change. So I think not only for himself, but Tennessee needs Juwan Mitchell on the field to get a little tune-up if he can play. I don't know what's going on there, but a big one too is in the secondary. We all can tell Tennessee doesn't have a number one cornerback. I think a lot of it is because of the lack of athleticism at cornerback. We heard a lot of talk about Brandon Turnage in August. Haven't seen much of him. And Christian Charles, I think, is the fastest player in the secondary, and I don't think we didn't see him at all last week. And so I think for the sake of the Vols, they need one of those guys to be able to step up, because I'm not as hard on Warren Burrell as a lot of people. I just don't think he can cover the number one guy. I think he's a number two cornerback, and I think they know Kamal Hadden is. A lot of the reasons people think Kamal Hadden looks better than Burrell is Kamal Hadden is not – Burrell's usually guarding the better receiver right now. And so I think Tennessee desperately needs Turnage or Charles to emerge there. Juwan Mitchell, I think we've discussed that, has a lot more to do with something off the field. We don't know what's going on, but those are some of the big ones. I think shortening the rotation at receiver is not a big deal. Honestly, I don't know how you guys feel. I've never been a fan of the whole running 6-7 receivers and splitting the reps evenly throughout the season. I've always felt teams are at their best when they have a clear go-to, a clear number two. I remember, Dave, you'll probably remember this, when David Cutcliffe took back over in 2006. Everybody talked about how he remade Eric Ainge. The best thing David Cutcliffe did was shorten the rotation at receiver. There was clearly Robert Meacham as the go-to guy, Jason Swain as the other guy, and then Brett Smith in the slot. And that was it. No questions asked.
I agree. Yeah, I remember that year well. Tennessee hired David Cutcliffe away from me. He was my co-host the year before, in between his stints at Ole Miss and Tennessee. So I couldn't really compete with that type of money, Caleb. You know the budget I'm working with. As far as the games this week, let's take a look at the SEC slate. Across the board, there's only one matchup that's really scintillating. And, guys, I think that it's pretty obvious. It's Texas A&M Miami. That'll be a 9 o'clock game. So maybe by the time you get home from the game, or if you haven't partied too hard throughout the day, you'll be able to watch it. But Miami's 13th in the nation. Texas A&M's 24th after the loss to App State. And, guys, if they lose this one, suddenly Texas A&M has a loss to App State, and they're 1-2. Amanda, I know that you're not a big Jimbo Fisher fan, and I probably was. Not a fan's not the right word. I was on his bandwagon, so to speak. But, man, I like John Adams have jumped off that bandwagon. if they lose this game, I don't know where things go for Texas A&M, because you could certainly have a situation in which with Texas A&M, they'd like to fire a coach, but they can't afford to. Not even close, Amanda. So this is a big game for Jimbo.
Can they not really afford to? Because I think Texas A&M has a ton of money, as we've seen, and they can afford to fire him if they really want to fire him. It's just, who are you going to come out and get if you do that? Who are you going to be able to recruit there if you do that? Unfortunately, I've never liked Jimbo Fisher. I didn't like him when he left Florida State high and dry. He left that program in shambles. I see Jimbo Fisher as another Butch Jones type of guy, very used car salesman, very come play for me, all this other stuff, but not exactly the best in the X's and O's department. That's just my opinion. But I think if he loses this game, he's out. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how much they owe him. He's gone.
It's about $95 million. And you're right. They can come up with the money if they want to make it happen bad enough, Caleb. I mean, they could certainly do that.
Well, it's
a lot of money.
Yeah, I think this is I don't know if this is true. Somebody should look this up. Has Jimbo Fisher been paid more per win than any coach in history?
I think so. I think that's correct.
Yeah. He gets a lot of money to have the same record as Kevin Sumlin through this many games. I kind of agree with Amanda. I think one of the things we have to look at is, when Jimbo Fisher was at Florida State, there were two programs in the ACC that were worth anything: Florida State and Clemson. And Clemson was still somewhat on the rise. And it was very easy to go through that slate and annihilate everybody with the NFL Heisman caliber quarterback. And then, congratulations, beat Auburn in the national championship game, which was a good game. But I think anybody will tell you that Auburn team was very lucky to be in that national title game.
Yes.
Absolutely.
No, I agree. I think we're seeing a Jimbo Fisher that may be more the Jimbo Fisher that is in reality as opposed to not. So Caleb Calhoun, I know that I am writing a why Tennessee won't overlook Akron lead-up games to Florida over the years. You got anything cracking that you want to promote for this afternoon? I know the kind of the haze in the barn typically on Thursday night.
Yeah, a little bit. I actually kind of agree with. I don't know how Tennessee doesn't overlook Akron. I'm just going to be honest. I think one of my locks this week is that they're not going to cover. I'm very, very committed to Tennessee not covering against Akron this week.
I haven't even seen the spread. What's the spread?
47.5.
It's a big spread.
And I'm very committed to Tennessee not covering. And by the way, I want to throw this out because we talked about Texas A&M, Miami, Auburn, Penn State. I'm very committed to Penn State covering that spread. They're favored by 3. I got them winning by 17 maybe. And so on the NFL side, by the way, just to throw this out there for people in Tennessee, take Tennessee against Buffalo. The 9.5 spread is huge. That's ridiculous. Tennessee's the type of team that will lose to the Giants and beat Buffalo. But they don't need to take the spread.
You guys need to do like a gambling thing, because maybe there's something there. You and Amanda can start a gambling segment. We'll come up with a creative
possibly
thing.
But related to Tennessee Cracker for this afternoon, I'm just committed to them not covering.
Yeah. All right. So there's your point spread breakdown. Caleb, we certainly appreciate it. We will continue to follow your work at offthehooksports.com. I say I will. We want you to as well. So she's Amanda LaFratta. Coming up next, it will be Jonathan Crompton will join us. His appearance will be brought to you in part by Zool Beer Company. Zool Beer Company, the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. It's right there downtown. It is awesome. We're putting together an event that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And Zool Beer has great merch. Yes, it does. Worldwide award-winning craft beer. That's Zool, XUL for those listening, xulbeer.com. Coming up next, Jonathan Crompton, former Tennessee quarterback coach. Now, I want to talk to him about Hendon Hooker's footwork. We talked to Chris Landry about that. So we'll get Jonathan Crompton's take next. Stay tuned. She's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker, back in 2 minutes.
Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes, folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Nest Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus a complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This day in sports history, putting things in perspective, exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
You're so old. When you were a kid, rainbows were black and white.
And Amanda LaFratta.
The kids on the block just called. They wanted you as a backup dancer.
In this day in sports history, I know all out of order, but I wanted to get to it for Jonathan Crompton joining us now. First game under the lights in Nyland Stadium, 50 years ago today.
It's interesting.
Jonathan Crompton, how are you, sir?
Good, bud. How are you?
I'm well. Guess who the starting quarterback was 50 years ago today? Condridge Holloway.
I wanted to say Condridge, but then I didn't want to be wrong and offend him and be like, oh, I'm not that old. I wanted to say Condridge, though.
How good would Condridge have been in this day and age of football that was accepting of African Americans, that was accepting of a quarterback with mobility? Because it wasn't back then.
Condridge would have been good in any era he played in. He was that good, right? And in today's era, he probably would have lit the world up. Well, I mean, think about it. They had the breakaway jerseys and all that stuff. He would hand the ball off and they would make him run to the sideline so they couldn't rip his jersey and make him come out of the game. Like, that was part of the game plan for the defense. Yeah.
I didn't know that. They would rip
how good he was. Is the defense wanted him out of the game so bad that if it was a handoff, just a straight run, they would try to physically run and rip his jersey so he had to run to the sideline.
Wow. That's interesting.
I wonder what NIL deal he would have had. That's really kind of the more pressing question.
He knows everybody. So he would have had – everybody would have been after him for NIL deals. He is the man to know.
Yep. I took his parking spot once, or blocked him in, because that little parking lot they had, remember, Jonathan, and behind the facility? Mm-hmm. I may have been running a little bit late for media availability, and I blocked him in, and let's just say Condridge was not real happy. But then I said, I apologize. Let me move my car right now. And he goes, man, I'm sorry. I got an earful.
We all used to randomly park back there and get in trouble. For sure. Running late, like, oh crap! There's no street parking. Park back there. Hope they don't know it's my car.
All right, so
Get towed in a heartbeat.
All right, Jonathan. I talked to Chris Landry, who is a scout for Nick Saban and a coach for Bill Belichick, about Hendon Hooker's footwork. So he said that there are natural throwers. I'm not comparing Hendon Hooker to Aaron Rodgers, okay? But there are guys on that end of the spectrum that can throw with their feet straight up in the air. It doesn't matter. Yeah. There are other guys that need their feet to be in the right place. When you watch Hendon Hooker, his footwork, is it okay, good, great?
Excuse me. Well, I go with, and I've said it going to last year and then obviously into this year. Personally, and it's not just him. They teach every quarterback there to do it this way. I think it's too narrow, personally. I'm not saying he's got to be 3 feet outside his shoulders. But if you look at it, he's inside of his shoulder width. And doing that, if you don't step, right? The reason why I like it, it's slight, like shoulder width, maybe slightly outside, not much outside, but slightly, because everybody's shoulders are different, is you don't have to step. You can let your hips do all the work, and it's rotational. Excuse me. When you're narrow, you have to step. Well, if there's a situation you cannot step, notice the shoulders go this way, which go down. When the shoulders go down, arm gets disconnected, ball flies. Notice most of his misses are up and away. That's why. Because they have his feet inside his shoulder width. So if he can't step into his throw, his shoulders are going to start getting tilted. Shoulder get disconnected. You're human. There's nothing you can do with that. And the times that he does step, when you have a narrow base, you tend to overstride when you're trying to put more on the ball. Once again, you're human. That's just natural. So I think he's a natural thrower, but I also think that mechanics for natural throwers are still huge when it comes to hips and shoulder rotational force. And I think his get off a little bit because of his feet.
So is that something that could be fixed in a season?
Oh, that can be fixed very quickly.
Oh, it can?
Yeah. It's just that's what they teach there. Every quarterback, if you watch every quarterback comes in, they all have the same stance, the same tempo. It's just what they teach.
Interesting. So
I don't know why, personally, but that's just what it is. You know, I work with Navy when he's at home, and I had Navy's feet really good. He was throwing the crap out of the football. We'll say it that way. He comes back on spring break, and they had right back into about that wide. That's just what they teach. And you know, it's not that it's right or wrong. It's just, to me, some things are more efficient than others. We'll say it that way.
Wow. Okay, so I want to get a little bit more into that. I know Amanda wants to jump in there. We'll talk the entire team and the Akron game and how you look at an opponent with Florida looming and all of that stuff. But you say right or wrong, what would be the advantage of the way they're teaching as opposed to what you're telling me is the way you would teach it?
I mean, everywhere, every place has, or every style has its advantage and disadvantage. The advantage for that way depends on the quarterback's arm. Right. If you got a strong arm, hence, Milton, you can get away with stuff. Hendon's got a strong arm, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to think how to say it where it'll make sense outside of my head. You've got to have rotational force from your hips, your shoulders. I said it last year a lot. I've said it this year already. Your shoulders got to be level to your throw. If I'm throwing a 50-yard ball, my shoulders got to be up a little bit. Obviously not this high. If I'm throwing a 5-yard ball, they're completely level. And so how it teaches, I tell people or kids that I work with, if you've ever hung a pitcher on the wall and you have a level that you try to level your pitcher with, imagine that right here there's a leveler. we need that to be as level as we can to every throw we throw. Every throw is different, though. Like I said, yardage determines that. So when you do that, at the end of the throw, they can stand there and look, how is my body, right? How can I feel this? So the more narrow your stance is, the more you have the tendency to overstride. If you overstride, you naturally are going to go down that way hard. If I go down that way, it's like a baseball pitcher. Why do you think they have so many Tommy John surgeries and shoulder surgeries and 60-day DLs for elbows? Because their shoulder gets disconnected and their elbow gets disconnected from their arm when they're here. Doesn't mean they can't have a long career. It just means you're putting more strain on your shoulder and elbow than you need. All right, and then that takes accuracy out of a football. And so the advantage for them is you can get the ball out quick, right? Not a big deal. But you brought up Aaron Rodgers. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has a wide variety of like lower body stances, right? If it's quick game, it is 1-2 balls out. But if you look where he ends shoulders right out, or his feet right outside of shoulders. He worked slightly outside, not a lot, and he's level. Now, there's always going to be those plays that you got to throw on the run and do all this stuff and make a play. But the advantage for the way that I teach and other people teach, it's not just me, about having a good solid base. It's called your home position. Have a good base. You can be balanced. If I'm balanced, I'm a lot more accurate than I'm inaccurate. And in today's world, everybody's looking for 70% completion percentage, right? And if you look at Hendon, he has a chance to be like 74. He's 65, I think it is on the year, 64 and a half, 65 on the year so far, which is nothing to shy away from. But those other like 8-9% that we've missed that are routine throws is because of his lower body that in big games can make a factor.
Interesting. All right, so I want Amanda to jump in here. We're going to get to the Akron game, which is a woeful opponent, and how you don't look ahead to Florida. But remind you that Craft Treats is where you need to be in terms of your dog and making it feel more comfortable, overcoming situational anxiety, and being able to handle some maybe elderly issues with your pet and arthritis and hips. Yeah, it's happening with Thaddeus. So Craft Treats, he's a big fan, and he's taking care of that. Again, Craft Treats. Go to Craft Treats, and you will be very pleased with how it makes your pet feel. Amanda?
Yeah, and also like and subscribe.
Yes.
For more.
Like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. Sorry,
yes.
I'm not good at that, Jonathan. Amanda's officially on me to keep track of that. So sorry. Good.
So we're talking about Hendon Hooker and his quarterback mechanics and the stuff that may make him better or may make him worse. And we know Chris Winkie is the actual, and I didn't know this until I looked it up. Chris Winkie is the quarterback's coach at Tennessee. He won the Heisman in 2000, and he was, I think, wasn't he one of those older quarterbacks in the league? Yeah, that's what I thought. Him and Brandon Whedon.
Baseball out of high school, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah. So the way that he threw in college, do you think that do you think that's impacting his teaching on quarterbacks like Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton and whoever else he's coaching?
Well, now wait. So Winkie's not there now. So
I thought he was.
Yeah, are you talking about the Jonathan is as far as the coaching, is there any sort of, I wouldn't think there would be any sort of carryover since Hendon transferred.
Excuse me, I don't think so off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up to be safe, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yep. So Winkie at Georgia Tech right now, but
the Tennessee, the UT Sports says he's still here.
He maybe a dated page, but with the coaches and what Tennessee is doing currently with Hendon Hooker, one of the things they do a lot with him is they do run the ball a lot with him. I know that's part of the offense, but when you see that, Jonathan, does that make you wince a little bit like me? Because no offense against Joe Milton, but I think it pretty much is on Hooker to take this team to the next level.
Yes and no. Like I said it last week, I was pretty vocal about it during the game. We have running backs for a reason. I understand you always scheme and go, oh, hey, we're going to run a QB draw here. I get that. We had a few too many QB draws last week, personally. But, it's the old cliche, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we also do have a running back for a reason. Just do a halfback draw, right? Something, if you want to run a draw play. I'm just not a big fan of that many runs because he does take a pretty big beating when he runs. He's a competitor. He's not going to get down very often, right? And he takes some hits that make you go, ooh. Like, is he gonna get up really healthy from that one? And over a long season, that adds up.
It does. And then the other thing that we were talking about with Caleb Calhoun about, you may have heard part of it, a set group of wide receivers as opposed to 5-6 guys rotating in. As a quarterback, what do you like to see?
Depends on the system.
Okay.
And I say that meaning in full honesty, like if you watch Tillman sometimes, like last week we missed a post route because he was just gassed. Now he don't wrong. He ran a great route and he beat the defender. But you could, after the play, he's doing this. And you could tell he was just not there. So I love the fact of 3-4 guys that you're very comfortable with. But in this style of system, you got to have 6 that are ready to go at any second because we go so quick. You may run 4 go routes back to back to back where we need somebody healthy. We're not healthy, but rested, I say. Right? But I love the fact that 3 or 4 guys, because you kind of know where they're going to be. You have that chemistry. But in this system, you got to have 6 that can get in and go. Because look at last week. It's week 2. When we get into week 6, 7, and 8, their legs are going to be even heavier. All right, so they're going to start getting gassed. So we're going to need guys down the road that can play. So, week 1 and then, this week, hopefully are good weeks to get those guys in the game. We got to take care of our stuff early so we can get them in the game to get them those reps to start getting comfortable.
All right, so I'm a dude that likes football a lot. And I'm not real crazy about the Akron game because, I don't go to games and party before. And quite frankly, I would rather be zoomed over on the Texas A&M Miami game because I think that this game is going to be out of hand. I am a human being. I'm thinking about the Florida game. You are a human being. I work with Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays. They are human beings. How do you not look past an opponent and think just a little bit as a former player? How do you not think about a game like Florida with Akron?
The human or the player side?
Human, not the PC answer.
Honestly, it's very hard to. Last week, Texas A&M kind of put something in your mind, but let's call it is. App State's better than Akron. Let's just call that like it is. But that right there, you go, ooh. All right. Not saying that Akron is going to go to App State and Boone and beat their tail. That's not going to happen. App State should have beat UNC. Let's call it like it is. All right. They beat Texas A&M, so they're a good team. But it's still the fact of they've only beat, 5 Power 5 schools in the history of their program, which I didn't know that until the other day. Wow. So that right there in the back of your mind going, we don't want to beat Texas A&M in that sense. We don't want to be the laughingstock. We don't want to have their night before the game pep rally where their dude is now going viral because he didn't age very well with his comments. Those,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, one, like that dude, honestly, side note, he should probably not be whatever they call their yell leader or whatever.
Leader.
Yeah, he does not need to be that anymore because, one, he did not get them fired up because the crowd did not yell for him, hence the word yell leader. And some of the things he said, you're like, ooh, that's not going to age well now. So he should probably just step away. But we don't want to have that feeling because we're starting to get that confidence back with the program. So this is a game that you got to go out there and take care of your stuff early. Hopefully by halftime, mid-third quarter, go, okay, as the starters, now we're thinking about Florida. But it's really hard not to want to think about that knowing that it's a 3:30 game. Side note, sucks as a fan because all the commercials, right? It's going to get over at midnight because that's what time it feels like 3:30 games end. It's already sold out. It's at home. You should be 3-0. Like those are things going through your head, but you have to take a step back and go, don't be Texas A&M right now. Just don't be. It's a hard thing to do, and especially with 18 to 21-year-olds. You know, I mean, let's call it like it is. Well, I guess technically some are older than 21, but still, it's very hard. They're young men. They're human. So, the only thing I can say is think of last week and watch what happened with A&M. Top 6 team in the country and played like dog poop, and now have a new starting quarterback. Like that's not what we want to be.
That's true, and I think was Texas A&M played San Houston State, I believe, something like that, and you saw. I think a lot of people missed it because of that 3-hour, thunderstorm delay. It took forever, and by the time it came back, nobody was interested in that game anymore. But you saw the major quarterback struggles in the first half of that game by Texas A&M. Like it was ugly. So I don't know. I didn't call that App State would beat them, but I did take the spread on that App State game at 18.5 when you saw how bad it was against a team like Sam Houston State before. Going back to that in the Akron game, I know I'm going to guess that Hendon Hooker is not going to be in there for very long. And probably a lot. Yes. Yeah, that's the hope. Probably not a lot of starters either. So who are you expecting to see come out and really shine in this game? Because it's going to be probably mostly backup, stuff like that.
Well, that's going to be the hard part. Like we got to take care of our business early. And if we don't, fans are going to get antsy. Right? Let's just call that like it is. Fans are going to start getting, why are we not taking care of our business? What did you say the spread was? 40-something?
I think it was
47.
I think she said 5 million.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised because for some reason it always seems like Vegas wants to have fun. And,
hey, for real though, Jonathan, did you ever go against a team that you thought you could score 100 on if they let you?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, and I know that sounds like, but yes. I mean, when we played Memphis, and Memphis was statistically speaking the worst team in college football from a defensive standpoint. Like actual statistically the worst. And so it was one of those where like we could, if we wanted to throw for 750 yards in the first half, we probably could. So it's more about the coaches maintaining a level head, understanding, get our stuff done, be efficient, get these guys in and out. So I would really be interested to see, as long as we do that. I'm excited about. I'm trying to remember his last name. Squirrel White. White. I want to see him. I want to see him get some significant playing time because he reminds me of a young Steve Smith from USC. Like his style of play, his body size. Now I know that's a high comparison for a freshman, but just watching like his quickness, his burst, his ability with the ball in his hands, I'm excited about that. So I'd be very interested to see him. And then obviously everybody wants to see Trayvon play because everybody's like, oh, Nico's coming in next year, blah, blah, blah. Now there's an open transfer portal, no consequences. Who's going to, let's call it like it is, from every school, who's going to leave. So now's the time to get guys like that playing time early in the year and kind of see what they're made of. So I would be interested to see, once again, how long our starters get to play and then how long you leave Milton in to put Trayvon in. Like that would be I want to see him get in and not just, hey, here's 5 handoffs somewhere out of the game. We all know that Milton's our number 2. I would rather see Milton just essentially not any other reason besides let's see what Jackson can do. Milton, you're down this week. There's no point in getting you hurt because then if we go to Florida and Hendon goes down, you got to play. And that would be a conversation I would be willing to have if I was a coach behind closed doors.
Awesome. Okay, so the last thing I want to ask is about the Florida matchup coming up. And I know I'm not supposed to be looking ahead, but I think everyone's looking ahead, and let's not lie and pretend like we're not. We're not, Tennessee's coaches, so we don't have to pretend. So with the Florida matchup, the game starts at 3:30. And I know that's like the longest. I swear the sun's beating down. It's the longest time ever to have a game. Trust me, I know. So why do you think that they scheduled that game at 3:30, even though it is like the biggest matchup of the week? And do you think, and I saw this out there and I'm just curious, do you think it's because of what happened with that Ole Miss game and the mustard bottle golf ball fiasco, and like Nyland's kind of lost the ability to have that night game?
I'm gonna take a take that nobody's probably expecting me to take. To me personally, I think it's because SEC's losing the CBS game in a year, and it's about money. I think they go, this is the first time in a decent amount of years that Tennessee-Florida is like a good matchup, and we no longer have CBS as of what, is it 23 or 24?
I think it kicks in 2 years, yeah.
Okay, so and you can't guarantee that Tennessee-Florida is going to be phenomenal next year because we don't know. We don't know who's leaving, who gets hurt, blah, blah, blah. So that would be, I think it's because we're losing the CBS matchup in a couple years, and now's our time to take it. Or, SEC time is time to take advantage of quote unquote primetime football. But that's just a kind of off the wall take, but that's my opinion on it.
Well, I mean, the way the pecking order goes is CBS still gets under the contract that first pick. So if you look at the SEC slate, it's kind of a no-brainer to pick that game because
yes.
I mean, the rest of the SEC's the SEC slate's kind of brutal, other than Texas A&M and Miami, and I don't know what to think of that game. That
it would have been different if they didn't lose last week. Like A&M, people would be thinking that game a little differently if they didn't lose to App State, or if they would have done what they were supposed to against App State and at least came close to covering the spread. But I mean, dude, that's a slap in the face. Texas A&M loses game day to Boone. App State's playing Troy, and they get game day there. Texas A&M, that's not a good look.
How many times have they lost literally this week just because of that one loss? At least three times they've lost.
But it was funny, like you remember earlier I mentioned about App State only beating Power 5 teams like 5 times in their history. It was App State. They were doing a little video on it. It was like App State X amount of times. I think it was like Georgia Southern, if I'm not mistaken, X amount of times. I think it was Arkansas State X amount of times. And then they were like, oh, by the way, they've all beat Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And I was like, just another dagger to the heart. But, I mean, that's kind of – I still don't think they would have picked that game for the CBS game. But I think they would have thought about it differently because it's called like it is, man, especially in the South. You got Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Bama, and the Iron Bowl. Those are games everybody's like, no matter if they're good or not. But when they're good, when both teams are good, it's just that much more intriguing to put on primetime because they max out their value on it.
Jonathan, a couple things. We mentioned this is the 50-year anniversary of the first night game at Nyland Stadium. What was your favorite night game at Nyland Stadium? Was there one in particular that really stood out that you were like, man, I think I know which one you're going to say, but one that was really just clicking?
I don't think anybody will guess this one. It'll always be a memory, and a good memory for me. Me and my dad were down at the Georgia game on a recruiting visit. My mom wasn't able to make it, and it was the one hand tied behind my back comment, all that. But so it wasn't about the game, but the pregame atmosphere against Georgia at night, and you could physically see the stadium, like the top of the stadium, just swaying. And that's when I looked at my dad and was like, I can't go anywhere else. Did the ball walk right at the front, get to the stadium, and you see that, and you're like, it's just different. That's probably, including all the times playing and all this stuff, I think that's still one of my most favorite moments in Nyland.
Wow, that's pretty cool. A lot of people may not know that late in your recruitment, right before signing day, I was told by a pretty good source who also has the initials JC that Georgia coach Mark Richt said, I will go do cartwheels in the front yard if you'll sign with Georgia. Is that true?
I'll be honest with you, I know we made a lot of visits to Georgia. Like my mom's from Atlanta, right? And I loved Georgia. But what a lot of people don't know is if Saban would have been, if he didn't take the Dolphins job, it would have probably been really hard not to go to LSU if you can read between the lines.
Oh, interesting. I'd never heard that one.
Nobody knows that.
Breaking news right here. All right.
That would have been a whirlwind, but it would have been hard not to if you can. Yeah.
No. Last thing I got for you. So Joe Moorhead, the head coach at Akron, asked this week, and I feel sorry for the dude, and I'm not going to call him out because I don't believe in calling out other media. It's just the way I live my career life. Yeah. But the guy said, so what do you think about Tennessee this week? And he sounded like he was like coming off a 3-day bender. And he said, so what do you think about Tennessee coming off a loss and playing them this week? And poor Joe Moorhead is like, Tennessee? And they go, yeah. Well, they won. They won in overtime. What is, and I hate calling out other media, but what is the dumbest question you were ever asked? And if it's me.
No, actually, no, it wasn't. I've been very honest. No, I've been very honest about, like, especially with our relationship, like, man, if you write what you got to write, everybody's got a job to do, right? But just some people ask questions that you just go, huh? Right? And you just look at them. And so there's obviously been a lot of dumb ones. But I would say probably the most generic, quote unquote, dumb one is, well, did you not see the defender when you threw it? I can't say what I wanted to say. Well, no, you know what? I planned on being a dumbass. I woke up today wanting to do something stupid, right? And you get those and you go, do I give the answer that will be on national media, or do I just be the professional out of the one that's supposed to be the professional, right?
Give the answer on media.
Did you not see so-and-so? Well, just hold your tongue, give the PC answer, and walk back there and go, he's the dumbest SOB I've ever talked to. And it was always the same guy. I'm not going to say who. But it was always the same guy that would ask just some stupid stuff. That was like so bland. But you go, did you, like you said, did you come off a 3-day bender and just not know what to ask? you just literally just saw something on like the last play. But yeah, I would say one like that. And there's always like ones that like just kind of catch your eye or catch your ear and go, did you really mean to ask that?
The one that's really difficult in a reporter's from a reporter's perspective, because it sounds like it's insulting, but it's not, is when you ask a coach, what were you thinking on that 4th down call? Because you're not saying like, what are you thinking?
Exactly.
Yeah, you're saying literally, but I've seen so many coaches get defensive about that I've changed that phraseology to kind of, hey, can you take me back with the mindset and kind of walk through? You kind of have to soft pedal that, because the other way of asking it can put a lot of people in a defensive upline.
And I can see that. But like you said, that's a legitimate question, and you're just trying to get inside their head of like, was there a thought to punt, or was there a thought to go for it? Like any conversation, what were you guys talking about? Like, I get that. That is a legitimate question. Because sometimes I want to be in the head of those guys that are going, hey, it's 4th and, I don't know, 3, and you're trying to run a QB sneak. Like, what? Seen that happen. I'm like, I want to know what conversation happened. Were you told the wrong down a distance? You know what I mean? Things like that. I get it. But when there's some stuff that you just go, what? No. Or just hit them with the Marshawn Lynch, I'm just here so I don't get fined answer. I'm next.
Yes.
Wish I could have done that.
That would have been nice. Okay, so let's go on dumb questions, because I asked one earlier. I guess what I was getting to, I didn't know Chris Winkie wasn't still there, but what I was getting to is, as a former quarterback, wouldn't like these coaches that you see that were former quarterbacks, do they try to influence from the way they played onto these players now? Do they try to influence what worked for them as to try to figure out what will work for somebody else? I mean, do they put that on players now? Do you believe that happens?
That's a good question, like legit, because I'm going to go with, if they're a good coach, no. If they're a not so good coach, yes. And the reason I say that is, like, times change. This sport is a never-ending evolution. Baseball, you can only throw so many fastballs, 2-seam and a 4-seam, right? Or technically a cutter. But change up, slider, curveball, blah, blah, blah. Well, in this game, you can always evolve on how you run certain plays. How do we get their emotions? How do we formationally hide it? What do we do to tweak our run game so we can still get that extra blocker on the edge? And it's never ending. And the good coaches, to me, understand, because I wasn't brought up and raised with rotational force throwing a football. I wish I would have. I wouldn't have had 3 arm surgeries. Because back then it was, you look at the pictures of, and I say back then, it wasn't even that long ago. It was in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? But everybody's here throwing a football. When you get here, maybe your shoulder disconnects. So I think when guys understand that this game evolves, they can help the next generation of players, especially at quarterback, to evolve with the game. And I think certain guys have done that very well. You can obviously see some guys that have not done it as well, but are trying to, because they're, quote unquote, stuck in their ways. So I know it's kind of a runaround answer, but to me, it's really, if they're a good coach, they do not say, well, when I played, it was this. Well, you know what? I can say that too. Hell, I played, and it was still in the 2000s, and it's already different. So anybody that played before that, it's even more different. So if they're a good coach, they don't do that. But you'll be able to start watching and going, I mean, you're not going to fully change somebody's mechanics, because at a certain point it's ingrained in their head, like their arm motion. But you can change if the player's willing and has the actual want to. You can change their rotational force and make them a better passer. Right? There's a well-known individual that is my draft class, that played in the SEC, that they tried to do it with, that is atrocious at throwing a football, that they did a big documentary on, and that never changed, because you know what? You can't change somebody that just is not a natural thrower. You can't. And I'm pretty sure everybody knows what I'm talking about, which is fine, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I trained with a guy coming out of college. It's one of the worst natural throws I've ever seen. Phenomenal athlete, though. And that's kind of that misconception is look at like.
I'm confused. So he was on a 30 for 30. I've now got to know who it is.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Who is it? Who is it, Amanda?
I'm guessing it's Tim Tebow.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not saying a word. But if you look at places where certain coaches have been and their quarterbacks, they've always said, you're the most athletic guy. You're just going to throw the ball. Well, rather than teaching them how to be a quarterback, right? So my only critique with Tennessee staff is they've made Hendon into a much better quarterback than he was at Virginia Tech and a high draft, like a legit top 3-round draft pick right now.
Yeah.
My only critique is just the width of his base. That's all. And if that's my only critique, then we've done a pretty damn good job.
Agreed.
Because I'm going to critique everything. But if that's the only critical thing you can get at, then we've done a pretty good job at transforming him from what he was to what he is. And he's done a good job of processing the information of here's what I got to do to here's what I got to do. That's a good coach. There are some coaches that, like you said, Amanda, they just, well, this is what we used to do. That means nothing, right? And so I know it's a long answer for the question, but it's such a good question that we could go on for days about that, especially this position because they're so technical.
John,
I've always got to be willing to evolve.
John, I've kept you on too long, and I really love talking to you. I know you've got things to do, but we did have one other person ask: Is Hooker staring down targets too much? Please like, subscribe, and share. And I actually did notice that on Saturday.
That's this system, though.
Okay, yeah,
the reason why I say that,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily him staring at the receiver so much. Most of our routes have a 3-way go. So he's got to see the defender to know which way his guy's going. So it's kind of a damned if you don't situation. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You're going to be looking in that direction, but almost every route has a 3-way go. And you got to know where your guy's going. So he's not necessarily looking at the receiver. He's looking at the defender, but there's no looking off the other defenders because we got to figure out where my guy's going to throw it on time. But the reason why that system is successful is because most routes have a 3-way go. So it's hard for them to be right, so to speak. Then if you look at it, I mean, he threw 3 interceptions last year. He didn't play he played, what was it? Technically like 10 and a half games, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And 31 touchdowns in 10 and a half games. So that's over 3 touchdowns a game. And 1 interception like every, 3.5 games?
Yeah, that's not bad.
So as I'm saying, like I take the pros and cons of that. It's just if somebody defensively picks up on it, they can scheme us. But our coaches, I think, are good enough to get around that.
Jonathan, thanks, man. Best to the fam. Have a blessed day and a fantastic weekend.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Jonathan Crompton, the one, the only former Tennessee quarterback, nice enough to join us each and every Friday. It's a Football Friday brought to you in part by Pedigo of Chattanooga, locally owned. Pedigo of Chattanooga is a great way to get around downtown. It's a great place to purchase your e-bike and know that they have sales and service that are right there that can take care of anything that may go wrong with your bike. If you buy one on one of those e-commerce sites, that's not going to be the case. So we kind of flipped the order a little bit today because I wanted to get Jonathan's thoughts on Condredge Holloway, this day in sports history. It was 50 years ago that Nyland Stadium played its first game under the lights, and Condredge Holloway was the quarterback. So we'll get today's tough question coming up next, and Amanda's got a fantastic one as always. We'll be back with you in, how about 2 minutes? Tell us about Viles Automotive Group.
Folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. is about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Have you done your research?
We're working like heck.
Today's tough question. What's the real debate?
You sipping my Soupe Guadalupe?
Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker and Amanda LaFratta.
You drinking my sake kimosabi?
Oh my God.
Today's tough question. Brought to you by, yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Brought to you by our friends at Big Orange Phillies. Big Orange Phillies, great place to watch the game this weekend. Have a fantastic time. It is family friendly, which is awesome. Great food and lots to do, like darts, billiards, and all kinds of good stuff. So today's tough question, Amanda, is?
Which Tennessee player are you looking to see more of this weekend?
Love it.
So there's 3 options, and I'm open for a 4th if anybody wants to chime in.
Okay.
Taven, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I also, you told me in our 5:00 a.m. production meeting, she told me the question. So I think it was more like 4:45 this morning, wasn't it?
Seemed
like
it.
Yeah. we don't sleep. And, but I did post on the message board if anybody had some suggestions. So if you need a 4th, we can help you out with that. But Amanda, who are your 3 right now? And then I'll tell you mine.
All right. I'm Taven Jackson.
Taven Jackson.
The backup QB. Squirrel White. And Dylan Sampson. Those are my 3. If anybody has a 4th, I'm open to it.
I was going to go with the 3rd that you said, Dylan Sampson.
Yeah.
That would be my votes. If you want to, we got one. Trevor's saying I'd like to see Justin Williams-Thomas. Boy, he has kind of faded away. We can make that. We can make that the 4th and go ahead and shoot that out. Maybe we've got enough time to get representation of what you're thinking. So we'll put that out on the Twitter. And I want to see what Dylan Sampson can do, because I think that Tennessee is more comfortable with him in pass protection first. And JG saying Dylan Sampson should be in the entire second half. I'm going to roll with you on that, JG. Is that Jarrett Garantano there? No, but with Justin Williams-Thomas, I doubt it. With Justin Williams-Thomas, I think there's some sort of issue there with pass protection. I just think that screams that. I've seen this before. So I don't know that you think he's a part of the plans anytime soon. But I think Dylan Sampson has played to where you think you can have him out on the field and you feel secure that Hendon Hooker will feel secure. But, Amanda, that would be mine. If you had to choose among the four, what would be yours?
I would say I would go with Squirrel White. I just want to see what he can do. Honestly, I want to see really what he can do. I'd take out, obviously you take out Tillman and you take out Brew McCoy. Those are clearly proven, wide receivers. So take them out of the game, see what Squirrel can do. I know he's young. I know, he has the coolest nickname though. Let's be honest. It's the coolest nickname, Squirrel White. So just see what he can do and what your future holds there. Taven Jackson, my only problem with seeing what, and I know that Jonathan Crompton just talked about wanting to see him because Joe Milton's obviously going in after Hendon, if Hendon has an issue. Maybe it's just a stomach bug. I'm just saying. Joe Milton's going in.
Game 6.
Yes, but my issue with that is I'm afraid that if Taven Jackson goes in and just lights it up, people are going to be talking about Taven Jackson and starting him over Joe Milton, and it's going to be a whole, media frenzy kind of thing because people aren't really remembering what Milton's done this season. They're remembering last season and the Ole Miss game. And I mean, he's honestly never going to live that down. I hate it for the kid, but he's never going to live that down.
Well, and it might, I hate it for him too, man, but to be real honest with you, it might just be an indication that I'm not saying he's not smart, but it might be an indication that his brain is not equipped for that type of mental processing. I know a lot of guys that are very, very smart, but weren't smart football players.
Well,
So
just not quick thinking. Just not exactly like that's not what you're quick to get. Like some people are very book smart. Some people are very quick witted. There's a difference, not one that's not as great as the other. But I'm saying there's somebody who can just fly off, the handle, and there's some people who just cannot. Just how it is.
So news breaking right now, according to VolQuest.com. So let's take a second and talk about this. Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel has become the newest $5 million man in the SEC. Thank you for the tip-off there, guys, on the message board. Following the Vol 7-6 season year one, Heupel has received a $1 million raise. The head coach's amended contract runs through January the 31st. This according to VolQuest, and January 31st, 2028. That wouldn't be a long contract. With a guaranteed salary of $5 million annually. Heupel's salary of $5 million puts him roughly 11th in the SEC in compensation based on published reports of salaries of head coaches in the league. His buyout, should he leave, is $8 million if he leaves before December the 15th, 2023. So, and
Dear Lord.
It drops $2 million a year accordingly after that. So according to VolQuest, I'm reading this. Heupel's buyout, should he leave, is $8 million if he leaves before December 15th, 2023. So in other words, what Josh Heupel is telling Tennessee is that he's pretty locked in. Any of these numbers can be overcome by somebody that's just crazy and wants him that bad. But that's unusual to sign a contract that has that significant of a buyout on your end. Now, that's what Tennessee should have done with Lane Kiffin. Would Southern Cal have overcome the cash? Probably, even if it was $10 million. But still, I think it's a very positive sign that Josh Heupel wants to be at Tennessee for a long, long time. So it drops $2 million, again, according to VolQuest, a year after that. The head coach's bonus structure remains unchanged from his original contract. Heupel's bowl bonus structure ranges from $100,000 for making a bowl for up to $500,000. So $5 million, what do you make of $5 million for Josh Heupel in this day and age where everybody's making a ton of cash and You obviously have Jimbo Fisher was the first $10 million man. There have been a couple more since, and Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. But your thoughts on Josh Heupel for $5 million? My thoughts is that considering the market, that's a bargain.
Yeah, that's all you're paying him, and you said it's 11th in the SEC.
It was $4 million as of yesterday or before the new contract was signed.
But he was 11th in the SEC. He's 11th in the SEC as highest paid coaches. Is that what I think you read?
Let me double check here. Yes, 11th in the SEC.
Okay, so let's all gather our brains together and come up with 10 coaches in the SEC that are better than Josh Heupel. Because you can't.
No.
You can't do it. Tennessee is a bargain. And apparently for somebody, as we've talked about, the top 5, Tennessee falls in the top 5, like biggest, with the most ability to pay people. I can't remember, with the corporate jobs and all that crap. If we're talking that, you are vastly underpaying him, and I would have bumped that from 5 to like at least 7, or from 4 to 7. I would have just completely locked him in and had, like, I think Jimbo Fisher has like a $95 million contract. Is that what you said?
Well, the buyout's roughly 90. I think it's 90 million.
And Josh Heupel's is $8 million.
No. So that would be the buyout if he left. That was my point.
Okay.
So the other university, because he's not going to pay $8 million, but another university that hired him would have to clear that hurdle to hire him.
Just $8 million.
Yeah, but typically those are lower. I mean, I know that typically the buyout on the coach's end, if he leaves, like with Lane Kiffin, I think it was like $350,000. So Tennessee and Danny White, to his credit, has learned that you at least need to put some sort of hurdle. Again, if Oklahoma or somebody else says, I've absolutely got to have you, they're going to clear the $8 million. They're going to find a way to pay that, and they would pay Josh, and then Josh would pay back the university, legalese, all that stuff. But usually those aren't significant on the coach's end of it. They've kind of got leverage. The Jimmy Sextons of the world have been able to provide them that. So that is a significant number. It can be overcome. But getting back to his salary, Amanda, that to me is an incredible bargain. Now, if you want to say 7 and 6, you can say that all day long, but I think we've all seen glimpses of what can be. And I think $5 million is a wise investment, and you tie him up, and maybe he has a long run like the Philip Fulmers of the world and the Johnny Majors of the world. That would be something I think Tennessee fans would celebrate.
Yeah, I think if you're Tennessee, I mean, I know it's $5 million, but it's still only like he is so much better than a lot of these coaches that are making a lot of money now, like more than he is. I just don't see how you don't give him more than that, because here's my thing, and it's not even just the SEC, it's around the nation. How many college coaches do you know that are really that special right now? I mean, you have Saban, you have Kirby Smart.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, in my opinion.
And exactly.
I think Mario Cristobal might be that next guy, but hasn't shown it. Not even close. So maybe. Alabama, a big maybe. I've thought that before with coaches, and I was dead wrong. Saban, $10.7 million. This is according to 247. And let me just double check, because they do these every single year, and I want to make sure I'm getting you the most up-to-date numbers. Okay, so this is from September. So this should be all accurate, unless there's been something that's changed since then. And I'm sure this was written after Kirby Smart got his new contract. So Dabo Swinney, second at $10.5 million. Kirby Smart, they've got him a little bit out of order here, I believe. But nevertheless, Kirby Smart is slated to make $11.2 million. So I don't know why they order it like this. But Lincoln Riley, we know, is making $10 million. Brian Kelly making 9.5, had leverage because LSU had to hire somebody. Mel Tucker at 9.5 is another guy that I think is an up-and-coming coach, like I said Cristobal was. But that, to me, that contract was just bizarro from the get. And feel free to jump in if you want to stop me here on any of these. $9.5 million to Ryan Day. They had to make that move because of the way things ended with Urban Meyer. He had leverage. The goofiest one of them all is David Shaw of Stanford. Do you want to guess how much David Shaw of Stanford makes?
8.7.
Higher.
8.9.
Higher.
9.1.
9.25 at Stanford. And he's getting paid $9.25 million, and Stanford won 3 games last year.
Good Lord. See my point? In Tennessee, pay this man more?
I do. If I'm the athletic director at Stanford and I thought I could hire Josh Heupel, I would probably accidentally back over David Shaw.
That's a little rude.
Yeah, it's a little rude, but to hire Josh Heupel. Okay, so we know Jimbo Fisher's at $9 million, Mario Cristobal at $8 million. Man, these are just absurd for some guys that haven't proven themselves. Lane is at 7.2.
You make Heupel. If I were Tennessee and I would want to troll somebody because they're still salty about Lane, and I'm sorry if you're a Tennessee fan, you're still salty about him. Most of your fans are. If I was going to troll Lane Kiffin, pull a Danny White, because I feel like Danny White is that kind of guy. I would put Heupel at 7.3, just to screw with Lane Kiffin's head.
Yeah, well, I mean, the more we look at it, the more we do think that it's not even close. He's underpaid. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, just over $7 million. Wow. So I kind of thought there would be a hefty raise coming after the season, but it is apparently now. So good for him.
I know, but if you're Tennessee, stop shopping right now at Sam's Club. Just stop trying to bargain shop your coach. Just go ahead, pay full price, and lock him down.
And what I don't see on this report, again, from VolQuest, and I'm scanning over it now, I do not see that I don't see the buyout notes. So, again, the question is not what he's really making per year, is what is the buyout? I know the buyout, according to the story, on his end is if he leaves, it's $8 million, but before December 15th, 2023, but I don't know what it is on his end. Tennessee's assistant coaching staff for the 2022 season is $6.8 million after raises and 1-year extensions were awarded ahead of the current season. So you have Tennessee defensive coordinator Tim Banks and offensive coordinator Alex Golish both have 3-year contracts that expire in January 2025. So let's go over a couple of these raises. Eckler goes from $350,000 to $475,000, $350,000 to $475,000. Glenn Ellerby, the offensive line coach, gets a $50,000 raise. That's always a red flag. From $750,000 to $800,000. Rodney Garner goes from $550,000 to $700,000. Rodney Garner could pretty much name his price because he's such a great recruiter. Joey Housel goes from $350,000 to $400,000. And he's a young guy. I think he's probably cool with that. And Brian Shaw.
Is he the quarterback's coach now?
Yes. And you wonder, I mean, you really kind of wonder how far down the chain he is in terms of decisions, because you have an offensive head coach, you have an offensive coordinator, and with Alex Golish and Josh Heupel. I don't know how much of an impact he really has on the team day in and day out. But so, he's young. He's probably cool with 400,000. I'd probably, yeah, I'd be all right with that. Brian Jean-Marie goes from 550 to 590. Jerry Mack goes from 400 to 425. Willie Martinez goes from 425 to 465. This according to VolQuest. And then Kurt Schmidt goes from 375 to 400. So what does that tell me? That tells me a couple of different things. Now, Garner was he was partially compensated by Auburn last year, so they got kind of a deal at 550,000. So they pretty much level him out. And as far as the rest of the people, Golish will go from 750,000 to 1.2 million. So if you do the quick math on that, that would be roughly a 50% raise. Heupel got a 25% raise. Tim Banks will make $1.5 million this season. He made $1.4 million in 2021. Now, I don't know the inner workings, but you talk about paying people more. Good gravy. I would probably pay Tim Banks whatever he needed because he has to tolerate that offense, and he's the defensive coach. His defense gets absolutely thrown under the bus by the tempo. That's the guy I'd probably back up the Brinks to so he doesn't leave.
I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, their defense played a huge role in that victory at Pitt. I mean, they did.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm sure all these negotiations were pretty much done before it was signed. I wonder if it had been a week or two later, if he might have gotten a little bit more jack. I think he probably would have.
Yeah, I would have gone in there and been like, wait. I know we discussed this, and I know we agreed on something, but hey, did you see what I did? Let's bump that number up a little bit, just a little bit.
Yep. Owl's Nest Barbecue in Ottawa has all your barbecue supplies. Owl's Nest Barbecue has the sauces, the rubs, everything you can imagine. They've got those Green Mountain grills as well that are fantastically awesome. And Amanda, we got time for one message board bingo today, so let's get to that right now. If you beat me, then I'm going to hook you up with a Hooker t-shirt. How about that? And all you have to do is type in your answer before I give mine. And I will play dumb and give you an opportunity to win. But I'll
Yes, please play dumb.
Play dumb. Yes.
Yes. Oh, and also like and subscribe for more breaking news.
Yes.
Yes, you're welcome.
Like and subscribe and share.
Share to your family and your friends, even if they're not Tennessee fans. Just go ahead and share anyway.
Share away. All right.
Even if they live in Sweden or wherever we're big, Finland.
We're huge. We're huge in Sweden. It's our second biggest country. Yes.
Sweden. Okay.
Maybe we'll do a remote there at some point. So
that's going to be down the line because that's going to be expensive. Okay. So if you don't want Urban, you don't want us to be awesome. None of us cheer for our team because we like the coach and thinks he is a good family man. Along the same lines, at this point, I'd support Bin Laden if he could win 10 games.
Clemson.
You're supposed to give people time.
Darn it. Asking.
But also, that's not correct.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter. We can give people time.
Okay. Well, then you have an opportunity. So I was wrong.
Yes, you are.
Crazy says LSU. Anybody else? Trevor says Auburn.
No.
Anybody else? I'm going to give you about 15 seconds. By the way, Josh Heupel with a big raise. Vassy Lawn and Garden, man alive. It's worth the drive. You don't need to make that type of cash to purchase a fantastic mower at Vassy Lawn and Garden. It is right there in Cleveland, worth the drive from Knoxville or Chattanooga. Orange Blood. Say Nebraska.
Orange Blood, yes.
All right, Orange Blood. I'm going to go ahead and if you can email me, I will hook you up with a shirt. So just go ahead and you can email me at dave@offthehooksports.com, dave@offthehooksports.com. So feel free to shoot that out to me. So Amanda LaFratta, have a fantastic rest of the weekend. Enjoy the football tomorrow. I know you've been on semi-vacation, so chill out, enjoy it, hit the beach. By the way, I do want to say that I saw this picture I will send you of like hundreds and thousands of crocodiles that were on the beach. There was some sort of...
That's in Brazil, and it's on a lake beach, not
Good.
an ocean beach.
Good. I don't want you to get eaten by a crocodile. So
But I do have a friend named Alfred. He's an alligator. There's no crocodiles here. There are just alligators. He lives in the pond behind our like rented house thing.
Don't pull a Chubbs.
He's cute.
Don't
He's
pull
so
a
cute.
Chubbs. You know that
He's like
reference?
this big. No.
You know remember Happy Gilmore Chubbs? He had the fake hand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I try to tune that out.
Yeah. It's a fantastic movie. The Price is Right. Something. All right, she's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the game, and we will talk to you very soon. This has been a presentation of